Let's just get right into it. I watched the Nanny Diaries last night.
Oh, okay, yes, let's... Boom, she drops it. Okay, I was gonna watch it last night again because, one, it was a really good movie, like, I'd watch it again. But also, I was like, ooh, I want to have, like... I remember getting really... The feels were strong as I was watching it, and I was like...
You need the refreshing of the emotions.
Yes, so I was going to watch it last night, but I was literally so tired after recording until 9. I was like, I gotta go to bed. So I did. I fell asleep, and I've been going ever since. Really quick before we start talking about it, spoiler alerts. If you have not listened to the earlier podcast, you don't know what we're talking about. We are talking about Nanny Diaries with Scarlett Johansson. If you haven't already watched it, pause, go watch it, and then come back because we are about to ruin it for you if you haven't seen it and you would want to in the future. Okay, initial feedback, please.
First I'll just say that I was not expecting a young Scarlett Johansson, number one. Yeah. And then number two, what's his name? The Chris one, whichever Chris that one is.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Let me pull it up.
Wasn't expecting him either. And all I could think of was the Avengers while I watched it, because they are in the Avengers
together.
Young
Chris Evans.
Yeah, Chris Evans. Okay. Immediate thoughts were, what the heap? If any nanny has a position that is like that, please immediately quit. I was blown away. And, like, obviously maybe they're basing it on something real, and that is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, it's so horrible. I could not even fathom how, like, dehumanizing they treated her. That wasn't really proper English, I don't think, but oh well. That's how upset I am.
Okay, so, really quick, I'm gonna just read off of Google, like, what is this? The IMDb
synopsis?
Review or, like, synopsis. Yeah, it just says, a college student, Annie Braddock, Scarlett Johansson, with a working-class background, takes a nanny job with Mr. and Mrs. X, who, that's what she calls them, an affluent but highly dysfunctional Manhattan couple. She must find a way to manage her studies, a new boyfriend, and the demands of her new employers and their spoiled offspring. Basically, it was like the nightmare live-in position, and I feel like, as unfortunate as it sounds, it is based off of true events because, like, first of all, the mother-nanny relationship, I feel like, obviously not near to that extent because I'm sorry, but the moment you, like, walk into my room, like, and start just, like, hammering me because you find lingerie that is from your husband's mistress and you, like, force me to take responsibility for that because you can't accept that he's cheating on you, like, I'd be done. But, and well before that, because that's really late in the movie, like, well before that I would be done. But, like, as an example, there's a nanny that I know who is a live-in. She lives in the basement suite, and she has had, on multiple occasions on her days off, her employers or, like, contractors that they hire for, like, plumbing or electrical or whatever, just, like, come into her room, just, like, completely unannounced. Oh, and she's, like, laying in her bed. Yeah, and I'm just like, what? And she's like, it keeps happening, like, it's so frustrating. And it's like, that is part of the live-in that I could never really cope with, I don't think. But, yeah, so I feel like it's in part, like, I feel like for all of those things to have happened to one nanny in one position would be a little much, and that's what makes it a little less realistic. But each segment of her life, like, each element of her nanny family relationship, I feel like is pretty accurate. Yeah. Which is what is so frustrating to me.
Yes. I do feel like maybe not to the extreme that they were depicting it to, like, even the, like, little aspects. But yes, I know who you're talking about. And that would frustrate me to no end as well. I have been a live-in nanny on several occasions, and hashtag blessed, because my first live-in position, they had this is what our government taxes pay for, because they're government employees. They had a humongous house that had on the first floor like a mother-in-law apartment. And so, like, I was technically live-in, but I had a whole separate entrance. Like, my apartment was not connected to their house in the sense of, like, an entrance at all. It was, like, our front doors were right next to each other. But I had a whole, like, bedroom. It was like a huge studio apartment. Because I had, like, the bedroom, living room, and then a kitchen and a bathroom with, like, a walk-in closet. So
talk about the dream.
I know, seriously, and that was my first position too, like my first full-time position.
I'm so jealous.
I don't know why they hired me. I was 21 and I had been working. I honestly, this is like a shout out to like hope for that you have and continue to have good relationships with previous families, because when I applied for this position, I was working part-time for two sisters, like watching both of their kids, I guess like kind of a nanny share. And they, when I was interviewing, my nanny mom that I was interviewing with said that she called the sisters and neither of them like wanted to get off the phone. Like they just kept like talking about me and like singing my praises, and that sounds so conceited when I'm saying it like this, but she told me that this was what happened. And so like
I believe it.
That is why I believe I got the position, because I really had only had part-time experience for 1 year when I applied for this position. We were going overseas, like we were not in the same city, so we were not going to meet until we got to Sweden, like all of these things. And I really do look back and I'm like, how did I get this? Like, how did I get that position? And I really believe it was because of references. So like, shout out, make sure you keep in touch with your previous families, do your best work. Like really just, yeah, I think references can really just set you over if you have great ones. Yeah. So that was a dream live-in position. No doubt. I worked for them for 4 years, but we were in Sweden for 3. And I have no doubt in my mind that if I had to actually live in with them and like have a bedroom in their actual home, I would not have survived. 0%. Maybe would have made it the first year, but I don't even think I would have made it for a year. So like
honestly,
seeing her like tiny room. Well, no. Okay, I can tell you that I know I wouldn't, because then a year and a half ago, I went and I worked for another government family, and I worked for them for a couple weeks, like a month, in Arlington, Virginia, and then they were moving to Italy, to Rome. Mm-hmm. And I went with them with the intention of working for them for like a year or two, or even their whole assignment in Italy. And hopefully people never listen to this. I had a room in their house, and like I had a bathroom attached. Like it was a large room that fit a queen size bed and a desk and like a bookshelf and things like that. But there was the expectation that because I was a live-in with them and like in their house, that if they needed to ask me something, they could knock on my door at any time and ask. And there was no like, the little girl, she would come and like knock on my door, and like sometimes they would tell her to knock on my door, so I wasn't ever sure if like she was just knocking on my door because she got away and like wanted to see me, or if it was because like they actually needed me or anything like that. And I had to quit. I had to say, we have different expectations for nannies and a live-in nanny. This is not how the experience of my other position went, and I'm sorry, but I can't do this. And like, again, a dream place, like Rome, Italy. We were right downtown. But my mental health for the first month I was okay, but as I was there for 3 months. And like the last couple months, I was a struggle to not quit every day, basically. So, I mean, I've had fantastic experiences and I've had not fantastic experiences. I think that some people can do it where you're a live-in nanny and you have a room. And I think that maybe I could have done it if I had known what it was like and I had gone into the situation saying, these are my rules and my boundaries. Don't knock on my door unless I'm supposed to be working and I'm not out, which doesn't, has never happened before. Don't expect me, you need to run to the corner store and you need me to watch her for 30 minutes on a Saturday night. Don't expect that. Don't expect that just because I'm living with you, that you can tell me that I need to work on a Sunday night or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that if I had known that that is a possibility for a type of live-in position, and I had laid down those rules and expectations before that, and they knew that I had hard set boundaries on those types of things, I think it could have been better. And so it was a learning experience, really. But again, we're all different. And so there are different types of nannies that can do different things. There are nannies that can live in, and if you're being paid overtime and all of that stuff, they're fine with being flexible like that. For me, yeah. I am not. I need at least a few days notice if you're going to ask me. That's a biggest thing too. If any parents listen to this, even though I know we're calling it Hello Nannies, do not tell your nanny that they are, unless you already have set hours or something like that, don't tell your nanny that they're working until 8 o'clock or that they're working on a Saturday or something like that. Don't tell them. Just ask them. Most of the time, we are givers and we do enjoy our jobs, and so we will say yes. Yeah. But ask, don't tell. That was one of my biggest pet peeves when it was oh, we're going to be home late, so you're going to be working till 8 o'clock tonight. I'm like, no, usually my day ends at 6, so ask me if I can work till 8, and 95% chance I will say yes, but don't tell me and just expect me to do that. I don't know how I got off on this tangent, basically because she's a live-in nanny and had to do all of those things, though. And so, yeah. I guess like you said, that she just had, all of the extremes in one situation. I think that's what made me, have my mind blown and was this is not realistic. But, like you said, when you break them down, the different types of situations do happen.
Yeah. So, first of all, your position, the first one, I would consider it more of which, watch out world, I just learned a new phrase, a live-on position. Apparently those are different than live-in positions, which I never knew until I recently was signing up for an agency. And they said, what do you want us to know or to keep in mind when you're applying for live-in positions? And I said, because I'm married, my husband wants his own space, and I'm going to respect that by only applying for jobs and asking that we have a separate entrance with a kitchen and a bathroom and a bedroom. And it could be a studio. It could be a really small place. Obviously, we're coming from 200 square feet. But it needs to be completely separate because he likes kids, sure, but he's so introverted and it's not actually his job, so he doesn't want to see them. He would be fine never seeing the people that I work with. So it's I just need you to know that. And she's like, oh, so you're not looking for live-in, you're looking for live-on. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, that's where it's just a separate unit or a completely separate wing of the house or whatever. That's a live-on. It's some people will still call it a live-in, but it's really a live-on. I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that was a difference. But I think that it's a very important difference to make now that I know those phrases, because that was one of the biggest things with her job, was that just the easy accessibility and the assumption that she would be willing to do whatever. At one point she had made plans to meet her mom for dinner or something, and it was her scheduled day off. She hadn't had a day off in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something, and so it was her one day scheduled off, and then the mom decided that she had something that had to be done, and she was just you're not going to make me do this alone, right?
Oh, yeah, it was like the
And she was
parent-nanny communication forum thing.
Yeah, and she was like, I guess not. And she, like, canceled her plans, and I was just like, no, that's insane. Like, it's that entitlement. Like, families don't want nannies that are entitled, but it's the same way, like, nannies don't want families that are entitled. And I feel like in that movie, the family was so entitled, like, that she wasn't even allowed to have a boyfriend. And I'm just like, what is that any of your business? Like, if she has a boyfriend, who cares? Like, that should not have anything to do with you. Yeah, that movie was intense.
Side of the times right now, because I want to ask your opinion on families, just kind of, I mean, it's not the same situation at all, but kind of. What is your opinion on families telling you that you have to have certain COVID restrictions and that they'll only, like, hire you if you're following their COVID restrictions and all of that type of thing?
So, honestly, I don't really know if I have a real answer for that, because since COVID started, I've only worked with 2 families, and one of them, when they hired me, they didn't actually say that I had to have any restrictions, or, like, they didn't have any expectations for what my COVID doing was gonna look like. But I actually asked them, like, to tell me about what their COVID circle looked like, because they were both nurses. In that alone, I was like, you're already in a high-risk situation. This was pre-vaccine, like, and they had a kid who was still going to school. And so I said, like, what are your precautions? Because I have been super cautious, like, not leaving my house. I don't hang out with friends or family or anything like that. And so I don't want to expose my family, because, like, I live on the property with grandma and grandpa. It's like, I don't want to expose them to COVID that I get from you guys. So I asked them those questions, and they were both super open and honest about, like, they both work as nurses. They come home, they strip, put their clothes in the washer, take a shower. Like, they were very on top of it, and it made me feel comfortable. But then the family that I'm working with now we're post-vaccines, and I am vaccinated, and they're vaccinated, and, like, I just said, I don't even think they mentioned COVID in their job description, but I just said, like, oh, and just so you know, I'm fully vaccinated. And she was like, oh, yeah, we are too. And I was like, okay. And so I don't know. I've not struggled with that.
Okay.
Whereas I know that there was one nanny in our book club that was saying that her family had required her to wear a mask for her full
yes. Oh, my
work
gosh.
day.
And I just said, nope, I would have quit.
Yeah, well, and she was working with, like, a baby, and she had to wear a mask all day, and she was working, like, 8-hour shifts, and it was for months. And I was just like, I don't think I could have done that, because I just don't think I could have done that.
If the family that I had been working for when COVID started said, you're going to have to start wearing a mask for the foreseeable future or until a vaccine comes, I would be like, well, sorry, but peace out. Like, I would not have been able to do it. I am fully on board for if a store requires a mask and I'm going inside and am even just, like, semi-near someone, well, you know, pre-vaccine, that I'm like, I will wear the mask for 20 or 30 minutes or whatever amount of time it needs to be. But yeah, no thanks to wearing it for 8 to 10 hours a day. I would have peaced out so quickly. I ask, though, because my family that I'm starting with in a couple weeks, we were talking logistics today, which I wonder what, like, you would consider, because I'm going to be living in with them again. It's actually the same family that I was working for in Sweden. They're coming back to the States again.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So we were in Sweden, and then we were in Virginia, so that was my total 4 years, and then they went to another country, and I said no thank you to this country. But now they're coming back to the States, and, like, the stars aligned perfectly that I was laid off due to COVID and like, am able to start working for them. But they just bought a humongous house that has a full basement, and it's basically, so there's an entrance from the upstairs, like the main house, to go into the basement, but there's a separate entrance going out, like out to the backyard, and goes around with a like a gate and everything. And they're thinking, like, they are planning on, hopefully in the next couple months, putting, like, a little kitchenette down there. And I'll have a full, like, little family area and a dining room and bedroom and stuff like that. So I guess...
Trade me
like,
lives.
Would you...
You can find a different job. Just, like, tell them that you know this gal, that you know this amazing nanny that lives in Washington, but she's willing to move. And she has a husband, but he's totally introverted, doesn't matter. And I will take that job. And then you find another job that's, like, close by in Virginia. And then we can meet in real life and be BFFs. And then I can have that amazing job.
Okay, but so... that would probably be considered live on then,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing, and I was like, when they sent me the pictures of the house, because they just bought it, they were like, yeah, and the whole, like, basement area will be yours, and there's 2 bedrooms down there, and I, like, had this, wait, but I, like, had this envisionment of, like, I'm gonna have, like, a craft room as the second room, blah, 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 and then I asked her a couple weeks ago, I was like, so, like, are you planning on doing something with the extra bedroom down in the basement, or, like, is it just gonna be open? She's like, oh, well, we'll put an extra bed in there in case any guests come, but, like, you know that there's, like, no guests come, like, maybe once a year we'll have someone for a couple days. And I was like, oh, okay. But even that, like, is not a huge deal, because, like, again, it will be their guests, so it's not like they're going to be hanging out in my living area.
Space, yeah.
And I have a feeling that they'll even tell them to, like, go upstairs. And, like, so the bathroom... I have an entrance to the bathroom from my bedroom, but it's one of those ones that has the 2 doors that, like, goes out. Yeah. So I have a feeling that they, like, will hopefully tell them not to really use the bathroom down there.
Yeah. Honestly, that kind of stuff wouldn't bother me. I don't.
It doesn't either, because it will probably be her parents.
Thinking, yeah,
and I love her parents. So I've, like, met them so many times, and they are fantastic. So yeah. I'm just like, okay, if your parents come and visit, like, we'll just chill.
Yeah, be like, don't worry, I'm entertaining the Gramps. Yeah. Like, tell me all your stories.
Yeah,
that's kind of my feeling. Like, I feel like with stuff like that, it doesn't bother me, but I'm also very social, and I don't mind sharing my space. Like, I think the difference, the boundary, the importance of the boundary is just really not even for the parents all the time, but mainly for the kids, that the kids know, like, you don't go down there. Like, unless she invites you down, you don't go down there. It's like, as long as that's clear, because most of the time with parents, you can have that conversation, but it's the kids that I'm always like, ooh, but they don't understand the concept of, like, she's not working. Like, yeah, we pay her, you know?
So the kids now, which this I've kind of mentioned before to you, the kids now, because I have watched them before, they are now going to be 11, 9, and 6. And I have never worked with older kids. And I feel like the only reason I said yes to this is because I just love them so much. And when we told them that I was coming back, we surprised them because so I've been able to keep in touch with them for the last 3 years. We do Skyping every other week for like an hour or so. And so they told them that they had found a nanny and that they were going to Skype them to meet the new nanny. And and so they like pulled me up, and the kids were just like, and they're just like so shocked and so excited, and it was just like the cutest thing. So I will say that, like, I think that it will be okay now that they're older. Like, they will understand. And I almost said her name. The mom even said, like, we will make sure that the kids understand that, like, the door going down to the basement, they don't go in unless it's during the day and you've said, like, oh, let's go get something from my space or whatever, because I have so many games and stuff that we play and things like that. But, like, she has said that. So, like, there are so many pros and cons to so many families. But when you find a family that, like, understands the need for your own self-care time, your own space, if you're a live-in, or just your own, like, that you need time off, like, just, as you can see, I'm going back to them. So, like, just, that's your family. Stick with them for as long as you can.
Yeah, I'm So jealous. That's like the dream job that I've been looking for through these agencies and things, because the other thing is that we do actually want to move, because I feel like I need something, like I need a change of pace, but also it's just
a different
my dream job. I'm just so sad it's you instead of me. I mean, I'm happy for you, obviously, but like I wish it was me.
Would you work with like older kids though? Have you worked with? Okay. I kid you not, I would not have taken this job if it was not a family that I already knew. My niche and my favorite is 6 and under. Starting with them 6 and under.
I feel like, for the most part, I think my niche is newborns and toddlers, but that's just because of, I think the more experience you get as a nanny, the more likely you are to get those jobs, because they want experienced nannies in those jobs, versus with older kids, they're like, nah, you could be a high schooler and just babysit them. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the reasons why it's kind of my niche, but also, and I think there are certain interpersonal skills, like communication skills, that you need when you're working with new families, like that are, you know, they just had their first baby or whatever. I think that there's specific skills that you need to make those relationships work, and I have those skills, and so I often get those jobs. But I love older kids too, because in the last job I had, like 2 families ago, I had an infant and a 16-year-old.
Really?
And yes, because the infant was planned. And so they were, it was funny too, because the mom and the daughter were 16 years apart, and then she had the son 16 years later. So it's like they're all 16 years apart. Anyways, I'm not recommending teenage pregnancy, but it was like a funny coincidence. But I would have the baby, and then I also had the 16-year-old. Technically, I wasn't her nanny. Like, she went and like would come and go as she pleased, and like I didn't actually have to make her food or anything like that. But I loved having her around, like for date nights and stuff. Like her and I would pick a movie, and like we made stickers one time. Like I taught her how to make DIY stickers, and like we would just stay up and chat about like what was happening in her school life, and I would help her with homework occasionally and projects and stuff. And it's like I love when working with older kids, because I feel like there's an element of like I get to be kind of your best friend and like your buddy, and I feel like I really like that older sister
vibe,
mentor kind of vibe. Yeah. And so I do really like working with older kids, but it just so happens that most of the time nanny jobs, especially when they're looking at my credentials, that they want me for younger kids, which I'm also down for. I really do enjoy toddlers and babies, and it's because I'm good with them. But if I had to choose, I honestly would probably choose the infant and teenager in the same family again, because it was just so fun having both to work with at the same time. So
yeah. Cool.
One thing about this movie that I wanted to get your opinion on was that nanny mom conference where they like lined the nannies up.
Oh my gosh.
And
so
asked
uncomfortable.
them to mention any issues that they were having with their family in communication. And it was like that was the point where I was like, wow, this is so true to industry, because all of the moms were looking like, it's okay, you can say whatever you feel. And then none of the nannies were talking, because they all knew that while you're saying it's okay to say how I feel, you're not really meaning that. And then, of course, Scarlett Johansson, because she was a new nanny, she didn't understand. And she's like, oh, I see her like affirming me, I'm going to just say it. And she did. And then the mom literally gave her the silent treatment for the rest of the night, like sent her home early, like was mad at her for doing what it looked like she was supposed to do. And it ended up, it wasn't even a big deal. Like, it was something.
She just wanted the night off.
Yeah,
that's
it was
what
just
it was.
That she wanted the night off.
It was the time that she was supposed to have the night off. The mom said, no, you need to come to this with me. How would it look if I didn't bring my nanny? And then she said, when they asked for like problems or whatever, she said, well, it would be nice to have some time off.
Yeah. And, like, all of the moms were, like, shocked that she said anything. But then the mom, like, her nanny mom was even like, oh, okay, like, you know, yeah, all you have to do is ask.
Yeah.
And it's like, she did ask, and you said yes, and then you took it back. Like,
yeah.
I feel like there's that. Thankfully, I've never really had to work with high-profile families, but I feel like that would happen a lot more in high-profile families where it's more about the looks of the relationship rather than the genuine relationship. But that was the one part in the movie where I was just like, oh my gosh, it's speaking to my soul. And then when the little boy said, I love you, and she was like, I said the 3, you know, words that would make it the hardest for me to leave and would be detrimental ultimately, which was, I love you too, or the 4 words. And I thought, it does make it harder to leave, because then the little boy was saying, like, you'll never leave me, right? And she's like, oh, well, I care for you. But then they did literally just, like, fire her, make her get in a cab and leave. And, like, she didn't get to say goodbye to the kid at all. Like, it was awful, because you could see by that point that the nanny and kid relationship was really helping the kid. And the reason that she got fired, by the way, was that the dad hit on her and the mom saw, and so they fired her. And it's just like, that was so stupid. But, and I will say, that was the one part that I've never experienced. I'm sure it's happened, but I've never had a dad hit on me. Like, I've never, if anything, I've had, like, the dads either feel like I'm a bro or they, like, father me, too. Like, they're just like, oh, what can I do for you? Like, yes, I'm so happy for gosh. You. And I'm just like, okay. So I've never had that experience, but I'm sure it's happened, because I'm just sure it's happened. But that was one of the parts of the nanny, of the movie, where I was like, that is another thing I see that I think is true to, like, just the nanny industry as a whole, is that you do get so attached to the kids. And if the parents are like, bye, like, you're not our nanny anymore, and they don't give you a chance to have closure or to, like, work on, like, have regular dates after, you know, you're not their nanny anymore, like, with the kid, it just makes it so much harder, I think, on the nanny and the kid. Like, it genuinely is hard on the nanny, and I think the movie did a really good job of showing how upset she was. Like, how upset the kid was, obviously, but how upset she was as the nanny that she didn't get to have closure with the kid, because it genuinely is upsetting. Like, I have cried many a times when leaving nanny families, and I'm still, like, I haven't worked with this family in, like, a year, other than their one day, their wedding day that I worked with, and they're moving to Spokane, and still I am like, which is not even that far away. It's like 3 or 4 hours away from me. But I'm still, like, crying all the time randomly about it, because I'm just like, but I'm not even going to be able to, like, stop in and see him anymore. And I think the movie did a good job about showing the nanny-kid relationship.
I totally agree. I will, is that, do people really put those types of expectations on nannies, though, to not say I love you back?
I mean, I feel like, because, well, she was talking to the other nannies at, like, some play area or something, and I think they had said something like that to her. Like, it was implied that they had mentioned that to her, like, don't get too attached to your kids. And I think that there is this, I don't think there's this expectation that you won't get attached. I think people don't realize how deeply we do get attached, because I think there's, like, the family's just like, oh, well, it shouldn't be that big of a deal for you. Like, if they don't feel attached to you, they think that their kid isn't attached to you, which is not at all true, because I've had relationships with the kids that are amazing, and me and their parents were like, like, I mean, I didn't hate them, they didn't hate me, but it was just like, you're here. But then I've had other families that, you know, I have a really close relationship with the parents and the kid, and those are the families that I think really recognize and appreciate and address the relationship that you have with the kid, and they, like, acknowledge, like, yes, this is a tight-knit relationship that you have with them. But the ones where the parents don't feel attached, I think they just expect that you don't feel attached to their kid, which is ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah, because I've never, I think that it's a hard line to, like, have, because obviously it can be and is devastating to leave the kids, and so there is, like, a small part that, like, wants to hold yourself back, but at the same time, I think great nannies do, like, that is one of the reasons that we are such great nannies, is because we do, like, give our all and our hearts to each of these kids, and building those relationships are what makes the situation and the job and the relationship that you have with the nanny kids so fantastic. Yeah, but I mean, I've cried so many times. The time that I left my 3 nanny kids that I had been with for the 4 years, which the youngest, they had her after I started, so I was with her since newborn. I cried for a month, like, off and on, and then, like, even after that, like, would just, like, randomly start crying because I would miss them. Like, it was heartbreaking to leave them, and it was even more heartbreaking because it was like this difficult thing, because the 2 older ones understood that I was leaving and that I wasn't going to see them for a while. Obviously, I had been with them for 4 years, and their parents were great, and so, like, I knew that I would still be able to keep in touch with them and all of those things. At that point, I didn't know that I would be Skyping them every other week, but I knew that I would at least probably, like, FaceTime them once a month or every other month or so. And so it was difficult because the older kids knew, and the oldest, she was 8 at the time, and so she was just, like, crying the whole morning that I was leaving, because I went to the new country with them, and then like to transition them and stuff, and so the whole morning before I was about to go get on the flight, she was crying, so of course I was crying. And then boy, he was 6 at the time, and, like, he had cried a little bit the night before, but then, like, he, like, saw me and his sister crying together, and he was like, "Why am I not crying, Miss Jenae?" I was like, "I don't know, little boy, why aren't you crying?" But then the worst and the hardest was that girl 3, who I had been with since newborn, did not understand that I was leaving. And so, like, I was crying and, like, giving her hugs and stuff, and she's like, "Nene, I already hugged you," and, like, didn't understand that I was, like, leaving, and that I wasn't just, like, leaving to go for a couple of days. Like, I was leaving, and, like, yeah, we would keep in touch over FaceTime, but, like, I probably wasn't going to see her in person for at least a year or 2. And so, yeah, like, I totally cried for, like, off and on. Like, I just felt like I was leaving a piece of my heart with them. And, like, as difficult as it was, I would never change giving them that piece of my heart, you know? So I think it's, like, it's this fine balance where, like, you have to go into the situation knowing that you probably are, and that you're just going to leave a little piece of it when you leave, whenever that is. And hope for the best that the parents will let you keep in touch with them. But don't not do that because it's going to be hard at the end of the position, because I feel like it just takes everything to the next level. And for me, it has, like, just made everything better to be able to be that fantastic nanny. Again, I feel like I was, like, just, like, being so conceited when I say that, but I think it helped me be a better nanny to do that and to give my heart to them and my love.
No, I completely agree. And on the flip side of that, the goober scene popped into my mind. Okay, so in the beginning of the movie, she gets hired and the little boy is acting out towards her because he's mad about his other nanny not being with him anymore. And I thought it was perfect. It was, like, spot on to when you get a new nanny job and the kids, like, hate you, because I feel like in the beginning it's so awkward because the parents are, like, hoping that their kid just immediately falls in love with you, and you're like, no, this is gonna take a while. Like, this is totally normal. Yeah, he's probably gonna talk trash about me when I leave. Don't believe him. It's fine. Like, and I feel like parents don't know that, but as a nanny, it's like, no, this happens literally every time. Like, every new job I get, they compare me to their last nanny or to their mom, and they're like, I hate you. I wish so-and-so was here. And it's like, well, sorry, kid. Like, you won't feel that way forever, but for now, sure, you can hate me all you want. Just don't hit me. And then there was that, like, turning point where she, like, kind of lost her mind.
She felt like him peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. Well, she lost her mind because she was, like, fed up with trying to make this, like, vegan, whatever, like, lasagna. That looked awful.
Dish. It was a French dish.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I just remember it because I watched it last night.
No, it looked disgusting, and then she, like, accidentally drops it, and she's like, screw this! And she, like, goes to the cupboard and, like, gets the, you know those jars of, like, peanut butter and jelly mix? Blech. But she pulls it out, and she, like, scoops it, and she's like, just eat it! And he's like, I can't, that has high fructose corn syrup, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, just try it. And she, like, eats it, and she's like, here, try it. Yeah, go ahead, it's okay. And she's like, so then he eats it, and she's like, if you want to do cool things like this, it could just be our secret. And I was like, I have my thoughts, but first let's get your thoughts.
That's a no-no.
First of all, it was hilarious that she finally just snapped, and that's what made him like her, was that he got
peanut butter and jelly in the same jar. Ugh.
Yeah, but that was the turning point. So I thought, like, oh, how accurate that you have this, like, it's always in, like, one day where all of a sudden they're like, I love you, don't leave me. And you're like, what?
What happened?
Yeah. But then, okay, the secret thing, yeah. What do you think about that?
That's a big, big, big no-no for me. Definitely not. We're gonna go here for a hot second, but, like, that's one of the biggest things that they teach you, especially for, like, sexual assault and and those types of things, is, like, don't call things secrets, because you don't want a predator to say, well, this is our little secret or something like that. If there was ever anything, well, no, I would never say to a kid, like, don't tell your mom. Like, if we were doing something for the parents, I would just say, oh, this is a surprise. Like, we're going to give it to them, or we're going to do something for them, but this is a surprise, so just don't tell them yet. No, secrets, especially from parents, no. Because, and this, like, it can be so hard to realize, and I cannot tell you how many times I will either complain to my dad or a friend, or, like, write in my journal, because we think we know better, and sometimes we do. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they're the parents, and they have the ultimate decision. And so if you don't want to, or if you can't handle what they're telling you to do, then you need to quit. And it sucks. But that's the deal.
Yeah, I fully support that as well. I will say, when I saw her say that, I was like, I've had moments similar to this. I don't say secret, though. I say, you can do this with Rainy. Because then they know, like, if you ask your parents, they're probably going to say no. If you ask me, I might say yes, because depending on what it is. A lot of times it's, like, not this, like, disaster. Like, in the movie, it was literally she gave him a scoop out of the peanut butter jelly blend jar. It's like, if he didn't have an allergy to this, I would be like, who cares? But I wouldn't have said it was a secret. I would have just said, like, you can do this if you want. Like, if your mom asks you, she's gonna say no. Or if you ask your mom, she's gonna say no, and that's okay, because I eat this, and so with me, you can eat this. Like, I would just, like, make it clear that it's not a secret from the mom, because that's the other thing is I do sometimes tell parents, like, hey, so we did this today, and I know that it's not something that they would ever do with their kid, but I'm just like, it's not a secret. Like, if your kid tells you this, you should hear it from me first, that this is what we did, and I know that it's not something that you're, like, super hyped about doing, but I did it, and it's not going to kill you, and, like, it's fine. But if they've specifically said no to something, then that's a little different. Like, if the family has specifically said, like, don't do this thing, and then you do that thing anyways, that's a little different. But just, like, when parents are just like, no sugar, because we restrict sugar, and I'm like, you can guarantee there's going to be a time where I give your kid a piece of sugar, because I eat candy constantly. Like, I am constantly eating candy and cupcakes and cookies and all of that, and you cannot show a little kid that you have a pink rainbow cupcake and not give them a bite. Like, it's just not going to happen. Totally. So it's like, there's a balance there, but yeah.
Side note, Studies have shown that peanut allergies are becoming more common because parents aren't giving their kids peanuts and things from a young age. So if a parent tries to use that card, let them know that they're just creating the peanut allergy by not giving them peanuts and peanut butter or whatever. So that's my 2 cents.
Oh yeah, no, I have a similar 2 cents on that, which is my feeding reference guide that comes in the complete nanny binder, because I had a parent that didn't realize, like, we were doing baby-led weaning and she didn't know, like, how to introduce certain things to the baby, and she kept wanting to give him soft cheeses when he was like 4 months, and I was like, you can't give him like mozzarella. You can't give him mozzarella cheese too young, because it's gonna just, like, his stomach is not ready for that. But so anyways, I have a whole guide on feeding reference stuff because I was just like, I need to make you this for him and we're gonna put it on the fridge. Please stop feeding your baby this cheese, because then his stomach is all upset and I have to deal with that. But also it helped us, like, figure out some of his allergies. Like, he was actually allergic to tomatoes when he was, like, he was sensitive to them. I don't think he was allergic. He was sensitive to them, and it was making him have a very small rash. So they said, they took him to the pediatrician once we realized that's what it was, and then the doctor was like, just wait until he's, like, 3, and then try introducing them again, because it might just be that it's, like, a baby reaction. But, yeah. So, there's the 2 cents on the food thing. Anyways,
I will say,
I
do like you're saying that, like, you do stuff with Rainy. And I'll say that, honestly, most of the time it's the opposite thing, that, like, the parents will let the kid get away with something, and I just say, well, that's what you do with your mom and dad. You don't do it with me.
Yeah, no. That is a lot of how you speak to me. That's one of the biggest times that will come out, where I'm just like, oh, if mommy and daddy give that to you when you yell at them, that's not okay. But if they let you do that, whatever. But do not do that with me. Like, it's not going to fly. Yeah. And so I think that's why also I feel comfortable saying that, you know, we can do this because I don't mind. Like, one of the things, so I'll give you an example, especially if parents are listening, like, I'm never going to hire this girl. Here's an example of what I mean. I do not mind cleaning up a huge mess. Like, I don't care about messes. They don't bother me. I don't freak out about them. So I had a family, they would not allow the children to help cook in the kitchen or to, like, decorate cookies or anything because it just got too messy. Like, it just got too messy and she couldn't handle it. She was like, this is overwhelming. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I can't handle this. So when I would come, we would bake cookies, we would decorate, frosting and sprinkles would be everywhere. And I'm just like, I don't care. You're having a great time. Like, it's hours of entertainment. We're talking colors and measurements and all of that. Like, I see the benefits outweighing the fact that it's going to take me, like, 30 minutes to clean this mess. The benefits far outweigh that. And so that's the kind of stuff where I would say, yes, that's a Rainy activity. Like, you can do that with Rainy, but mommy and daddy probably aren't going to want to do this. But that's okay. You can just wait until it's a rainy day, and then we can do it with Rainy. Yeah, a rainy day. I know, it's funny. But anyways, and so they knew that there were just certain activities, you know, that different people would do. And I think that that's okay to set those boundaries with kids, because they have to learn that different people have different boundaries and are okay with different things. And, like, they will learn that, because what's acceptable at home isn't always acceptable at school. Like, there's different rules depending on where you are and who you're with. And so I will say things like that, like, it's a Rainy activity, or you can do that with Rainy, but mommy and daddy don't like to do that, and that's okay. So I think that's what I mean. I don't usually mean, like, well, I don't know what ideas you had, but it wasn't any of those. It was just, like, cupcakes was the main one.
Okay.
Anyways,
that's all my thoughts I had. If you watch it and, like, you're thinking of becoming a nanny, don't imagine that is a real thing. I mean, maybe one in...
Altogether.
Yeah, altogether. Yeah. Maybe 1 in a 5,000 chance of that happening or something like that. Yes, the small situations happen separately, but very, very rare, in my opinion, for that to happen. Yeah. And if it does happen, quit. Again, Just quit. Should not happen. All of those situations should not happen at one time.
No, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and if you've watched it and you have any comments or concerns or whatever, drop them down in the comment section below, or like DM one of us or something.
Yes, at Nanny Jenae.
Yes, and at OS Simply. But yeah, DM us or something so that we can keep the conversation going, because I'm sure that there are going to be nannies that listen to this that are like, that's me! And I'm going to be like, okay, let me hear this story. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, group message us so that we can both encourage you to quit.
Yeah, we'll help you find another job, don't worry.
Yes.
We both apparently find these amazing jobs where we have, like, not really that many issues.
Yeah. Like, really, though, because I was blown away by this last night, so.
So now on to the book, you know, the one we're reviewing and talking about. Chapter 5, E is for Empathy. Oh, before we do that, I actually meant, so last time we chatted, we were talking about, things, we don't say things out loud or to other people that we say to ourselves. And so it's like one of those habits that we can like turn it on and off, like that negative speak, which then made me think of swearing, because there are so many nannies on Instagram who, like, there was I don't remember which nanny started it, but it was like, what's your worst, like, most un-nanny habit that you have that, like, shows up outside of work. And, like, so many people put swearing. And I was just, like, so surprised, because I personally don't swear. Like, I think the worst word I ever say is hell. Like, I just don't swear. I haven't really. And so for me, it's not something that I have to turn on and off. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm just like, is that something that you can turn on and off? Like, I don't know. I feel like it would be too hard. Like, obviously I don't have the habit, but I feel like it would be a really hard habit to just, like, turn on and off.
She's asking me because the other day, after we stopped recording, I swore.
Yeah, well, it made me think of it. I was just like, oh my gosh. Well, because at that point, I had never heard you swear before. And then when you did, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm so surprised that she's never just, like, let it slip. Because I do know people, like, I have family members who swear like sailors. And if they go to an event where they're not supposed to swear, like, it is impossible for them. Like, they struggle. And so I'm just like, how are all these nannies just, like, turning on and off their swearing? Or, like, you see nannies on Instagram and then they, like, in their close friends will be swearing up a storm, and then on their regular feed there's, like, nothing. And I'm just like, how do you decide that? Like, I'm just, you know, it's just a thought.
So I did not start swearing until, like, 3 years ago. I grew up in a very highly religious home, and swearing was not something that we were allowed to do at all. And I was still very highly religious until a few years ago. And then I wouldn't even swear in my head. That is how, like, controlled it was. And so as I started going away from the religion that I grew up in, I, like, started swearing in my head, and then as I got used to it, then, like, I would start swearing on the phone sometimes just to, like, my dad. And then, yeah, like, I still am I can still very much control when I do or don't swear. And I do highly believe that it is because I did not swear at all, probably until I was, like, 25. And even now, like, I'll hang out with some of my friends that are still in the religion, and, like, I won't swear around them. Like, I have some friends that I know they don't care, so I will, but yeah, I very much can turn it on and off.
That is just interesting.
And even, like, most of the time, I still am not very comfortable swearing around people. Like, if I swear around people or strangers, it's because I don't know why. Like, I very much, like, it is, for me, very much, like, I can turn it on and off, and I am very aware of when I do and do not swear.
Huh.
So, I don't know how it is.
And, like, comment below if she's an odd case, or if you agree with this, because I'm very curious. I feel like once this finally launches, around the time that after it launches, I will be posting a poll on my Instagram.
I know, I was just going to say, like, can we just, like, both post a poll and see, like, what people's responses are to this? Because I am interested as well. I fully believe that most of mine comes from the religious background of not swearing growing up all until, like, my mid-20s. But yeah, so I don't know how other people do it. Or like what their like where their like control and turning on and off came from, or if they sometimes do slip. Like, I have never in the last 3 years, I have not slipped around nanny kids since I've started swearing. So like I wonder if people who have like sworn not most of their life, but like longer than I have, I wonder if it's easier to slip up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But also some parents don't care. Like, I know parents that swear around their kids. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also true. I think it's interesting too. And another reason I ask is because Mike makes a very conscious effort to not swear, like, period. Like, he doesn't typically swear. But inevitably, if he hurts himself, you can guarantee there is a swear word that's going to come flying out of his mouth. And I always just look at him like, how do you not have control over that? Like, and he's like, it's just a gut. Like, it's just what comes to me. And I'm just like, but I did grow up around people who swore. And even still, if I hurt myself, I will more than likely go, oh, that's it. Or like, ow, that hurt, or whatever. But like, it does not even occur to me to swear. Like, it doesn't even come into my mind. So it's just like so interesting that he doesn't typically swear, but like the moment he stubs his toe or something, it's just like the full rainbow. Yeah. And I'm like, where's that coming from? You've never sworn before. Like, I'll never forget the first time I heard him swear after we were married, and I'm just like, what has happened? Like, where did that come from? And he's like, it just happens when I hurt myself. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, there definitely will be a poll posted about that after this podcast goes live, because I'm very curious. Okay, so anyways, in chapter 5, E is for empathy. I really only have a couple of notes because a lot of it I feel like we've talked about before. It kind of this book does start to overlap its chapters, like its ideology starts to overlap within chapters. So it talks a lot about, as parents and caregivers, we should implement these qualities in ourselves before teaching our kids. And then it talks about how kids need connection, which I feel like a lot of this too, I feel like is kind of common sense. But as far as like, if you tell your kid how they feel instead of asking them how they feel, and like instead of genuinely trying to figure things out from their perspective, if you just like put your feelings and thoughts onto them, that's obviously not a good idea. Like, I feel like that is just like, yes, like we know that. But I like this point. This quote, it says, even before kids are taught to help or to be considerate, perhaps before they understand it's an obligation, children are less selfish than often presumed, which I think is so interesting because, especially working with toddlers a lot, we are like, you should share, and then they don't want to, and we're just like, stingy little toddlers, or like selfish little toddlers. But it's like, really, they're not selfish. Like, usually if I'm sitting with a toddler at the table, they will offer me whatever's on their plate, or like I'll ask and they'll be like, yeah, sure, like whatever. And so I feel like we want them to be even less selfish than they are, but in reality, like, as adults, when we go out with friends and stuff, like, we don't always offer what's on our plate. Like, my food's my food, your food's your food, period. So it's like, why Why do we expect toddlers to literally give up any of their possessions at any given time when someone else wants it? Because we as adults would not do that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't make the kids that I nanny, I don't make them share. I will say I always teach my nanny kids to ask the question, can I have that when you're done? And I would say 9 times out of 10, within 5 to 10 minutes, the kid will give the toy over. Like, yeah. Every family that I've done that, I usually nanny for multiple kids. And like, if the middle one has something and the older one wants it, usually they don't know how to say those types of things. They just expect immediate gratification. But I'll teach them, well, they're playing with it right now, and when they're done, then you can have it. But right now, they're playing with it, so you can't expect them to just give it up. And so, yeah, I teach them to say, can I have that when you're done? And the kid, again, kids are a lot less selfish than, like, we put on them that they are, because... Yeah, within 5 or 10 minutes, they'll give it up. They'll give it over and be happy to do it, instead of being really angry that you're forcing them into stopping playing what they're doing just to have presumed kindness. Like, it's not actually that... I don't know. I just don't feel like it's actually kind. It's just stupid.
Well, tell us how you really feel. No, I'm just kidding. But I completely agree. I think that when we force kids to share, we're actually teaching them to not consider their feelings or their thoughts, and we're teaching them basically to not set up boundaries for themselves. Like, we're basically teaching them it's okay for people to walk all over you. You just need to constantly give of yourself. Like, that's what we're teaching them when we force them to share. Whereas when they have the option to do it, that's what's actually teaching them, like, kindness, because then they get the gratification of when they give it to the kid that wants it, that kid being super thankful, and they get to say, or they get to realize that it has to be good for both of us. Like, it's not just about if it's good for you, it's also about, is it okay for me? So I completely agree with you.
Side note, if you can hear music in the background, I apologize. My dad and my uncle are watching something loud.
That's fine. It's fine. Mowing lawns, movies playing, whatever.
Only a few more weeks and then I'll start my new position. It won't happen.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Then I'll have kids running overhead.
Oh, yay. Yeah, you'll just hear, crash! Oh, man. So basically it's important to teach our kids that it's okay not to share. And I'm sure that you have a book recommendation.
I was just about to whisper into the microphone that there's a book called It's Okay Not to Share, and also the same author has It's Okay to Go Up the Slide. And we should read that in the future.
Because I feel like every podcast episode you add at least one book to our list.
At least.
And it's like, these episodes are long and we're covering one book in like 4 or 5 episodes. I can only imagine how long our list is gonna be.
If I say, oh, I can think of 50, like, really, that's 50 months, which is like 4 years.
Oh my word,
boy.
yes. We might actually, I mean, theoretically, reading one book a month, I feel like, is a pretty attainable goal as a parent or a nanny that's listening to this podcast. But maybe we'll just do them more frequently. Like,
maybe we'll do 2 a month.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe we'll do 2 a month. But we'll see, because then I also have to read these books.
I know, I was just about to say, are you going to commit yourself to reading 2 a month?
Yeah, I'm not making any promises. The promise that I make is there will be 1 book a month. And then anything extra that happens, goodie for you.
It's just like a bonus for you guys. Haha, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
honestly,
I will say that when I move into my new bedroom and house and finally have all of my things in one space after so long of feeling like I'm homeless, I will take a picture of my bookshelves and I'll just be so excited to post it.
I'm actually quite looking forward to it. Books. Do you like color code your books on your bookshelf, or do you like?
I have done multiple different ways. Depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I'll just switch it up randomly. I have done color coded. I have done by topic, so I'll have like all of my child development, all of my caregiving, all of my memoirs, that type of way. Sometimes I do it by height. There have been many a way that I have organized them.
I am glad that these books bring you so much happiness. Like,
oh, they do. If I could only have one thing for the rest of my life, it would be books for sure. But just imagine this though. Like, if we didn't have TV, if we didn't have anything else to entertain us but books, you could go anywhere in the world and you could learn any topic that you wanted to learn.
And what I'm
so what else do you need?
What I'm hearing you say is, if you want to spend more time learning what you can learn on YouTube or experiencing what you can experience on YouTube, then read a book. That's literally what I heard as you were saying that. No, but seriously, I also, you're obviously ready for the apocalypse. Because you'll have your entertainment while our Wi-Fi's down.
Yes. There was a show several years ago that they only did one season of. I was very disappointed by it. By the one season. I cannot remember what it's called. But it wasn't like the apocalypse like zombies, but just all of a sudden their like all electricity all over the world went out. Like, there was nothing. Like, planes crashed, cars just stopped. Oh, wait, no, cars didn't stop because they have gas. But, wait, why did planes crash?
Because
just, like, the power of it, like, the electric, whatever. You get my meaning, though. Everything just stopped. And I was like, I would be okay with this. I would just go and live in Montana, and I would have my big everything, all my nature, and then I would have my books.
I have a question though about this
all I need.
show. Is
hold on, I'm finding what it's called.
Solar power? Like,
it's called Revolution. It was in 2012, so maybe like solar power wasn't like
a thing yet.
Yeah,
it's not as popular. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'll link it down in the show notes. I'll link it down below.
The synopsis is a world of empty cities, local militias, and heroic freedom fighters, where every single piece of technology, computers, planes, cars, phones, even lights, has mysteriously blacked out forever.
Dun dun dun. Honestly,
there's only one season. Wait, maybe there was two.
I hate when they discontinue a good show, though. There was a show, and it was real corny, but I loved it anyways. It was, because I'm, like, a Hallmark, ABC Family, like, it's my jam. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually.
Don't apologize for that.
Well, I have friends that, like, legit make fun of me about it, like, all the time, but I'm just like, whatever.
You and my sister-in-law would get along great. She loves Hallmark. We watched a Christmas Hallmark movie when I was in Texas in May. That's how much we love Hallmark over here.
I can't even say I hate it. Like, I'm not even mad about it. I literally, like, would DVR all the Hallmark movies just so that I could watch them anytime I wanted. That, like, so Hallmark, ABC Family, and, I mean, don't get me wrong. I also like my medical shows, like, you know, yeah, and my, like, cop shows and stuff. But what was the one... I was also going to say, like, also older...
Sorry, I just had to put that in there.
Also, like, older movies, like Audrey Hepburn, and, like, The Way We Were, and, like, I just love those two. But I was going to say, there was one show that only had one season, and I was super peeved about it, and it was Jane by Design on ABC Family. It was so good, and I was like, why are they stopping? Like, I don't understand. There has to be more than just me watching this. Like,
yeah.
I loved it.
Oh man, what was I gonna say? I can't remember. Point is, I love books.
Yes.
That's how all of this came about.
Yeah.
Our
random
TV
tangent,
talk.
but I honestly, it's so hard to. I was thinking about this. I told Mike, I was like, I want so bad to also include like reviewing nanny books, shows and movies, because I feel like I would actually have things to contribute.
I know.
I could like suggest new ones every week, but it's like, the books, I don't know.
We could just do like short segments that we post, just like quick little like 30-minute ones instead of hour plus ones that are like,
that's the other thing.
Hey, we just watched this TV show. Here's what we learned from this. Here's this movie. Yeah. Here's how we can apply it.
It would be really fun. Those might become some bonus pieces. But I'm making no promises because my load is large.
Yes.
Getting back to the topic at hand. I'm also like so tired these last few recording sessions that I will be better though, because tomorrow is literally a sleep day. Like, I'm setting it aside to sleep. So I should feel back to normal.
Self-care for the win.
Woo woo. I know people are like, oh, I want a mask and a spa and everything. I'm like, just let me sleep, please. That's literally my self-care. Okay, there was this great idea talking about how we can teach kids about empathy, and it was to show pictures of kids exhibiting different emotions, like sadness, fear, anger, frustration, happiness, and then the kids talk about the cards and put into words what the kids on the cards are sensing, learning, and then they conceptualize their own feelings, and others' feelings. It's basically teaching them how then to empathize. So they recognize the emotions of the kids on the cards. They talk about like maybe why they're feeling that way or what they're feeling. And then they can then relate to it because they understand it. And so I thought that was so clever, and it's such a simple thing to do, like to find pictures of kids with different emotions on their faces. And also when you practice that, you're giving them the language that they'll need later to express their feelings, which is like one of the main goals of childcare, is trying to just give them the words to communicate through those big feelings, at least as a hashtag toddler nanny. And so I really resonated with that idea, of that way of teaching.
Hold on, I have a thought, and it went away. Dang. It's like almost bedtime here, that's why.
Sorry. I know, I've kept you up really late today.
It's okay. I've had fun. I was just listening to your preach words. Oh, okay. Have you ever seen the emotions wheel?
Yeah.
Okay. I just like was introduced to it a year or two ago, because I feel like a lot of the time we just feel one thing and like just focus on that instead of like getting to the root of things. And I feel like that's why it's so important to teach kids the different words for different emotions and show the different emotions and things like that, because then they're able to express it more freely. And even within ourselves, like I have several times in front of my nanny kids been getting very frustrated, and I'll say to them, I'm having a problem right now. This is on me. I'm getting frustrated. I'm going to step into the other room and take some deep breaths. And it's not only showing the nanny kids that like, hey, it's totally normal to feel these types of things. And it's not totally normal to like hit and be rude or anything like that. But yeah, take deep breaths, step away from the situation, that type of thing. But when we are, like you said, when we are able to give the kids and our nanny kids the words to express them, we are able to also help them more process through it than just like, I'm angry or I'm sad or something like that. Like we are able to get to the root of the thing or the situation and more freely help them process through that.
Yeah. Look at who's preaching now. Yeah, so the last note in my notes about this chapter was that Danish schools typically will put children of different strengths and weaknesses together to help them foster collaboration, teamwork, and respect. And I remember when I was going to school, I was going to become a teacher, a pre-K teacher. That was actually my plan. And one of the things that came up in, like, school philosophy, which don't get me started on our school systems, but one of the things that came up in school philosophy.
Okay, I'm going to find a really good book or two to talk about our education system because...
Did you hear that? Or two? You guys, help me.
I'm sorry. But don't get me started on our education system.
Okay, so obviously that's a hot button topic. Yeah. So basically, one of the big debates about the classroom and the classroom setup was, should we separate children into highly capable programs or disabled programs or, like, challenged programs or whatever, or should we just keep them all together in one classroom? And then later, when I was doing my internship as a student teacher, it came up, like, that I was working in a classroom that was, like, 3rd to 5th graders, and it was the only classroom in the school like that, and it was because it was a deaf and hard of hearing classroom. But I honestly loved working in it because similar thought process of, like, highly capable and, you know, kids that are falling behind and blah, 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 just mixing them up, and then even mixing different ages up in that too. I think they were so much stronger when they were together because as the kids that were doing really well were helping the kids that weren't doing super well, they were learning more. They were learning how to explain things more. They were learning how to communicate better, and they were instilling what they had learned in their heads. And then they were helping the kids, and the kids that were getting help didn't feel as bad about it because they were getting helped by a peer. And so they didn't feel like they needed adult help.
I can just see on my thing, they just started another new movie and it just went boom.
Oh, well. Anyways.
We need to end quickly because I bet you they're
gonna...
It's fine. Okay, to go off of that, I don't remember what book it is that I have read, but I have read a book about the different age groups and how back in the olden days when you would have the one room schoolroom, it was so much better for the kids because they were at the different levels and they were able to, like, process through. And just like you said, studies show that when you teach something, most of the time you are processing it and understanding it better. And so you had these different kids of different levels. But what book was it? Because it wasn't even just talking about, like, the olden days. It was talking about their school system. Like, for 1 hour every day would pair up an older student with a lower student. And so it gave the older student, like, the sense of responsibility that they had. And then it gave the younger student someone to, like, look up to and be like, I can do this in a couple years, you know?
Yeah. Well, they had a program like that in my school, like in my elementary school. 5th graders would go to kindergarten classrooms and... It's fine. 5th graders would go to kindergarten classrooms and help them with their reading. And so it was like helping the 5th graders feel a sense of responsibility and help them teach some of the reading skills. And it was helping their reading improve. And then the kindergartners also just felt like, ooh, I can, like you were saying, I could be them one day and I could read these big books. And they would take turns. I remember the 5th grader would bring a book that they were reading at the time. And then the kindergartner would bring a book that they were reading at the time. And the 5th grader would help the kindergartner through their book and then would read out loud from the book that the 5th grader themselves were reading. And so it gave the kindergartner, like, oh, those are the kinds of stories I'll get to read on my own one day. And I loved being a part of that program. At that time, I was already super into being around little kids, even though I was only 10. But, yeah, I think it really does help kids with their learning.
Definitely.
Okay, and on that note...
I'm gonna find what book it was that I read about it.
Okay.
When I have all my books on my bookshelf, I'll be able to flip through and find it.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, yeah, let's end because it's movie night over there, and we have talked a lot.
Yes,
so,
we have.
Yeah, so I'll link everything down below, and then the next episode will conclude this book. So that's exciting. We'll finally move on to book number 2. And soon we'll get some feedback because I'm actually going to be sending out the first episode of this to a few select people to give us some feedback, since technically we will have recorded 2 full books before we release any of the episodes, I think. Or no, we won't have recorded 2 full books. We might have recorded
No, I think
1.5 books.
I think we were going to have everything recorded.
Like, we're going to have the whole mindset book recorded in a week?
Wait, no, because we didn't finish. I think that yesterday we were semi-anticipating finishing the whole book today. But since we haven't.
Yeah. That's true.
I think that there will be a little bit left that we have to do for
I think
mindset,
we were
but we'll
planning
have
on
a
doing...
majority of it done.
Yeah. So anyways, the point is that we will have had a lot of recording and not a lot of feedback, and I want to get some feedback. So we will be sending this preliminary first podcast episode to a few select people.
And on that note, goodbye. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I want to come up with a little catchphrase to say at the end. I like books. Bing.